Now then everybody, this is my first video in Davinci Resolve 16. Before we get started, I just want to quickly announce this is the second time that I've used the new Resolve 16, so I don't yet know all of the new features, or I've not got used to its new features as of yet, but when I come across them I will talk to you about it. So the aim of this video is to get you up and running in Resolve really quickly. You might have used another NLE such as Premiere Pro or Final Cut, and this might be the first time that you've ever touched or looked at Davinci Resolve. So the aim of this is just to really quickly get you up and running. It can be a bit intimidating like any new software, but it's really intuitive and very similar to other NLEs, so you should be fine. So the first time you open up Resolve, you'll get something like this. Now I've used previous versions of Resolve, which is why there's loads of projects in here from my previous work. So today I'm just going to click on this one which I prepared earlier, and I'm going to click open. If you were starting a new project, you just hit new project and it'll open it up, and you will get a screen that looks similar to this. So bear with me while I just resize this so you can all see what I see. Okay. So when you initially open up Resolve, your monitor will look very similar to this. Now I'll quickly go over some of these things as I click them. I'll try to not go through it too quickly. So essentially Resolve, you can navigate through Resolve really fast by looking at these tabs in the bottom here, these bottom icons. We have the media pool, which is essentially where you do all your housekeeping, set up your bins, import your footage. You've got your clips editor, which I've not had to play with just yet, which is a new feature in 16. You've got your typical edit page, which is the one I'm most familiar with. Next to that you've got Fusion, which is the built-in visual effects editor. Next to that you've got the color grading tab, the audio tab for doing your audio correction, and then finally the delivery tab, which is where you would output and you're ready to render your video. So we're going to stay in the editing section here. In the top left corner is where we're going to import our footage, and earlier on you saw me click on this media pool. Essentially in Resolve there's lots of tabs that you can turn on and off. They don't disappear, they're just hidden, which enables you to sort of take preference with what you want to see. Essentially I find it really easy to sort of customize it to get it looking how you want it to look. So if yours doesn't look like this, just make sure media pool is ticked. And if you've got extra things, it's probably because they're selected up here. You'll see because they'll be a little bit more highlighted. So in the media pool area, I'm just going to follow good practice, which I like to do. I'm going to make a bin here. So underneath master, I just right clicked and added a new bin. And I'm just calling one sequence and one footage. With the footage selected, I'm going to now right click in this empty space here and import media. Now earlier on, as I say, I've already had this opened up, so it's all ready. I've got some footage all ready to be imported, and I'm just going to hold Ctrl or Command and A to select everything, and I'm going to hit open. Now it says the clips have a different frame rate than the current project settings, and I'm going to click change because I want to make sure everything matches up as best as possible. So now my footage is here and it's imported. If I want to change how this looks, you can just click on these options. So if you've been really good and you've renamed your footage, obviously you'd see your footage all named happily there. I'm just going to keep it in grid view because I like it. So I'm now going to open up sequence. I'm just quickly going to show you how to create a new timeline. So in here we click right click, go to timelines and create new timeline. I'm going to rename this rough cuts. Spell. I'm going to change the video tracks to 3 and audio tracks to 3 as well, just to get me started. And then go to use custom settings and look at my format. Now this is if you're creating a new timeline. Say for example I needed this timeline to be 1080p. This is where I could change it, and there's some presets already in there which are really good. I'm just going to leave all this. I'm going to leave the frame rate. I'm going to hit create. So now you'll notice my timeline is activated and everything's lit up. So going back to my footage, I'm just going to grab a clip here to show you how easy this can be. Now there is a way, if you've already got some footage in your timeline. At the moment we're just seeing the preview window. If you click on this little button up here in the top right corner, it will enable the preview window and your timeline window, so you can view both obviously there's nothing in the timeline yet, so that's why there's nothing there. So say for example I just wanted 2 seconds of this clip. I'm going to go scroll up to there, hit I on the keyboard to mark my in point, and go over here, let me just mute this, and go to O to mark my out point. This is really useful, marking your in and out points. If you've got somebody talking at the beginning of the clip, or maybe somebody walks in, you mark your in points in the preview so you're not wasting time on your timeline trimming it and fettling around with it. So now I'm going to drag my footage in. If I drag in the middle, it brings in both audio and video. If I just select this one, it brings in audio, video, and vice versa, audio is next to it. I'm going to bring in both so you can see what's going on. So as mentioned earlier on, now you can see the timeline here. So essentially this is, we've already got started. We're already underway creating a fancy timeline, all edited and ready for output. So all I'm doing is just getting a few clips together just to quickly show you how quick and easy it is. And essentially this is it. You know, now you would be, you know, cutting your rough cut first without necessarily thinking about your effects. The rough cut is all about getting your sequence and the pace correct. So imagine this is now completed. So what we can do, I'm going to talk to you about some of the other features down here. Say for example I wanted these 2 clips to be picture in picture. I don't know why you would, but say for example I wanted these to be side by side in this frame. Some ways we can do that is by clicking on our video, going up to the inspector, and with the inspector open you can do all sorts of things that you'll be used to, like zooming in, zooming out. So we could zoom out a little bit, move the position, and we could put our 2 videos next to each other. So I'm just showing you a couple of really quick features in Resolve. This isn't by any means, don't do this. This is not, you know, I'm not showing you a technique here, I'm just showing you how Resolve could work. So we have 2 videos and you could do something like this picture in picture. Obviously the inspector view is great for just reframing things, zooming in. You can also keyframe all these options and you can animate these. So I can animate these to fly in left and right and do all that kind of cool stuff. So that's the inspector, which you can see here is turned on. I can turn that off. You've got your mixer, which is for your audio. That just appears down here. So again, when you're ready to start looking at your levels, you can increase levels and you can do it all from here, which is nice. On here we've got some more features and options, and I'll just talk you through those. You'll notice as I'm dragging clips, when they get near to each other they magnetize and they stick together. That's because the magnet is selected. If you deselect that, you can move your clip a lot more free, which is handy sometimes, but you know, be careful because you can run into your footage quite quickly. You've also got the link, this link icon, and essentially if you turn that off, what that enables you to be able to do is individually select things so you can delete them without deleting both. Now, while we're on the topic of deleting, just be careful. If you hit the delete button, you'll delete 2 things, and you can see something quite destructive happening here. However, if you hit the backspace button, you can select and delete the thing that you've selected. So it's just a bit of a tricky thing there in Resolve, a tricky feature which can confuse and some people find you know, quite harmful at first. However, it's just simply the delete. There's 2 ways of deleting things in Resolve. The delete button, which is quite destructive, and the backspace button, which is a bit more forgiving. So that's that. We've also got the blade tool, which is essentially similar to the razor tool in Premiere Pro, where you can start to cut through your footage if you're wanting to make little sequences. You've also got your cursor tool, which is the which obviously enables you to select things without blading them in this case, and just hit P on the keyboard to bring back your selection tool, or you've also got it up here as well and you can click it. You've got other features like the trim mode, which enables you to trim the clips, but you'll see here the way that this is trimming is by extending the previous clip, which can be quite helpful sometimes. You've also got the dynamic trim, which you can look at slip and slide. So again, have a play with those features. You've got your insert clip, which would insert the clip in the preview, as you can see here. Again, helpful if you're wanting to insert something at the beginning of the timeline and you don't want to move everything up. You can just hit insert and it will move everything up with it. Handy little tip. You've then also got the overwrite clip, which again will overwrite, as you can see there, the clip where the cursor is in front of. So useful tools to get used to and to be using to speed up your edits. If you're wanting to zoom in and out of the timeline as well, you can do that with this little slider here. So as your project gets larger, you can zoom out to see things, and next to that you can adjust how you view the timeline by selecting all these different features and increasing things, and yeah, just having a play around with that. Make the timeline look how you want it to look. I personally prefer this look unless I'm going to start working quite in depth. Some of the quick tips while we're in the editor here to sort of round off this first video, this intro video. If you're wanting to fade in and fade out on clips, one way that you can do that is just by making your video heights a little bit larger. You'll notice then these icons pop up here. And if I grab that icon and move it to the right, what this does is a nice little fade out, which you can see there. So it's a really quick way of fading in and fading out. And I think that just about rounds off a really quick introduction to Resolve 16. And as I say, I'm going to do some more videos where we get into some more detailed ways of using it. But really quickly, we've created some bins, we've imported footage, we've created a sequence, we've started marking our in and out points, and we've got started with the basics of creating a really rough cut. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thank you very much. See you soon.